Hello, I'm Pauliam, a poet, critic, author, and these are the poems I love. The first poem is a poem by Saddiq Dzukogi titled Summer in the Prairie. And it goes, on Q Street, dehydrated, I walk into St. Thomas Aquinas Church to mollify my body from the summer heat, dangling above a pulpit. Christ toys. On a crucifix, I loaf into a nearby pew, basking in air conditioning. A man at the far end turns as wood creaks against concrete on stained glass windows, riffing their own music. Saints like Cephs walking on their Lord's estate. Perhaps psalms dropping from their mouths. When I visited Holmes Lake later that evening, as my son chases after them, geese flap their wings into violet sky. I close my eyes, and my diseased daughter is whispering her fragrance. Like dwarf daylilies budded in a garden, a song is a dialogue between a soul and its body. Above a sharp hold in a boar oak, as fall, summer begins in leaves. Lips of wind holds the humid speech of weather. Home is hotter than this, I whisper. With no reproach, my body is a clamor of thirsts. I stream my throat with eyes lit. At this time of year, back home, my throat will be a silo for the grainy dust of harmattan. Earlier, in another park, by a fountain, water rushes out of a pipe mouth encircling the cascade. A couple of worries like shadows follow me. Everywhere in this prairie, the memory of home hurries out as sighs. It's exhausting. To hold home as a pendant, I wonder what thirst nostalgia can quench. This is where I live now, away from the comfort of my blood. On my way back from Starbucks, in a nearby quarry, a bird struggles to hold on to life. All alone, rolling in bush as if trying to douse the other of pain stuck on its feathers. A death wound. I don't know why it reminds me of my first day in America, where my wife observed cars parked close to sidewalks craving company of people. Quiet and lonely, though it is not what dying feels like. I imagine the bird, if it has a voice, will agree it is. And this is the end of this poem by Saddiq. I find this poem very fascinating, particularly because of the very definitive evolution of Saddiq as a poet and writer, and especially a poet that I've known through the years, and how he is able to capture the sense of displacement occasioned by his relocation to America with a young family, coupled by the fact that this relocation happened at a time where he was still mourning the death of his beloved daughter, whom he references in this poem. We see a mixture of emotions, a mixture of feeling, of the longing for home, the comparison between the lonely life in America, the isolated life in America, and the harsh weather conditions in Africa, in Nigeria, which reminds the poetic persona, of the differences of his experience. So by referring to, the harsher weather or the hotter weather or the harmattan weather in Nigeria, it seems to reconnect through the memory lane, those definitive elements that define his orientation as a Nigerian and as an African. I also find fascinating, the employment of religious, or should I say spiritual metaphors, like going into a church, to seek relief, from the harsh, weather or from the harsh realities of life. So St. Thomas Aquinas serves as a metaphor, for comfort, for relief. For me, I find this fascinating also because Saddiq Dzukogi is a Muslim who is a Muslim poet. But the fact that he was able to create these contrasting metaphors, as we would want to imagine it to be, tells us the evolved liberality with which he approached the creative process in terms of the instrumentality of poetry to bridge, cultural, religious, and social divides. So for me, it's a very remarkable poem, especially also it's very studied use of metaphors. The language is beautiful. It reminds me of classical English poets, and at some point even traditional African poets or pioneer African poets, as we often say, as you could find in poems of Black Africa. So I find this poem very, very remarkable. I cannot, because of time, really express how I feel about the brilliance of this poem. And this takes me to my second favorite poet, one of my favorite African poets as well. Incidentally, it's also featured in, I think, the anthology Poems from Black Africa, edited by Wole Soyinka, and it is by the South African poet Anton Nortje. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the name right, but I find him very fascinating because of his engagement with the apartheid subject in South Africa and how he was able to really engage that experience at that time. So the poem is titled Nightfall, and it goes: the black trunks holding up their canopies are hushed at dusk, tattered. The green drapes stare at skies darkened in between, and heaven has no more candles for tonight. Up there, thunder spoke a summer sermon, but watery and little was the soothing rain. And now I cannot even see the common clouds because I am waiting for the sun. Wishy-washy are the sweet tomorrows, and most amazing our tenacious hopes. The cat sleeps in the corner as I throw cold weight on these unromantic notes. And that's the end of the poem. I find this poem, like I said, Anton Nortje is one of my favorite African poets, and I encountered him in Poems from Black Africa, and I find his use of imageries and metaphors very precise, very in-depth, and they speak, to issues in such a way that you may not, easily see the connection. But when you look at those works or his works deeply, you see a very reflective mind. You see a very reflective perception of the South African reality under apartheid. So for me, Anton Nortje is easily one of my favorite African poets. The third poem I am going to read is another of my favorite poets, maybe favorite poems of all time, by one of my favorite poets. Unfortunately, it is a poem by T.S. Eliot titled The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I have always loved this poem. I have always made reference to this poem because of its very distinct use of imageries, metaphors, and language, and how, it thematizes the subject of love, the subject of art, and the social realities within the environment that, created this poem. So I'm going to read The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And it goes: let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etrised upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent. to lead you to overwhelming questioning. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs it back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muscle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, seeing that it was a soft October night, called once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed, there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to mother and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo, and indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin. My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin. My necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings and afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall, beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? And I have known the eyes already known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase. And when I am formulated, sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggling on the wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the butt ends of my days and ways? And how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight, downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along the table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say, I have gone at dusk, narrow streets, and watch the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? Should I have been a pair of ragged clouds scuttling across the floors of silent seas, and the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, and it malingers, stretched on the floor, here beside you and me? Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head growing slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here is no great matter. I have seen the moments of greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and sneaker, and in short, I was afraid. And would it have been worth it, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me? Would it have been worthwhile to have beaten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards overwhelming question, to roll it over some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it all. That is not it at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile? After the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so many more, and so much more, it is impossible to say just what I mean. But if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen, would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not all, that is not it at all, that is not what I meant at all. Now, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. I am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince. No doubt an easy tool, differential, glad to be of use, politic, conscious and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse. At times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the buttons of my trousers rolled. Shall I pat my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I've heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back. When the wind blows the water white and black, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea by seagulls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. Thank you very much. This is, again, one of my most beloved poems by one of my favorite poets, T.S. Eliot. The poem, I believe, speaks for itself and the various issues that it's explained. Aside from being a love poem that seems to be speaking to a love interest, it also gives us an insight into the sociological realities of the poetic persona, and we see the reflection of an aging, person who is losing his hair, who is conflicted with, the realities of life. We see the references to birds, the sea. We see references to the streets and people walking around. It's a reflection of the routine life of, the socio-cultural realities of the time that this poem was written. And it tells us a lot about even the habits, of the people. The reference to Michelangelo, for example, the repeated reference actually, also reminds us of, the phenomenology of Michelangelo as an artist, as a critic. So through this poem, we are able to really look deep into the heart of the poet to see his reflection of his society at the time which this poem was written, I believe. This is all that I can say about this poem at this time. Again, I have read to you three of my favorite poets, at this time. And thank you for listening. I hope it makes your day. Again, I am Paulian, and these are the poems I love.